Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Gaza ceasefire talks underway in Paris as air strikes continue. Israel says it will attack the city if no truce agreement is reached soon. United Nations Security Council marks 2 years of Russia-Ukraine war. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says Europe needs to beef up its defences, calls for stronger Europe. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches initiatives for cooperative sector, says it is instrumental in shaping a resilient economy and propelling the development of rural areas. News in detail now. In a fresh move, an Israeli negotiating team reached Paris on Friday for a potential ceasefire in Gaza. It is the latest sign of tentative progress towards an agreement that could end the 5-month-old Israel-Hamas conflict. The Israeli delegation, which include the heads of its internal and external intelligence services, will meet the director of the CIA, Qatar's Prime Minister, and Egypt's most senior intelligence official for talks over the weekend in a serious push to halt the ongoing conflict. And as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine completes 2 years, the diplomats gathered at the United Nations headquarters to express their support for Ukraine on Friday. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres addressed the Security Council and stated that international disputes shall be settled by peaceful means as per the UN Charter. He added all states shall refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any other state. Guterres also met with foreign ministers from Ukraine, Poland, France, Spain, the United Kingdom, the Republic of Korea and Germany. While Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba thanked global leaders for standing by Ukraine, Ukraine is seeking to rally support for President Volodymyr Zelensky's 10-point peace plan that envisages the restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity with withdrawal of all Russian troops, protection of food and energy supplies, nuclear safety, and the release of all prisoners of war. A delegation of US senators met with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Lviv on Friday. As the aid for Ukraine hangs in the balance, the group in Lviv was led by Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. During the meeting, Schumer said, "The main reasons we have come here is to tell the Ukrainian people that US is with you." Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson has blocked passage of a bill that includes $60 billion in new funding for Ukraine so far.
The main reasons we've come here is to help them make up their minds. We want to tell them what we have seen. We want to show them, we have heard from so many, that if you don't get the aid, you will lose the war. But if you get the aid, you will win the war. I take it that is accurate.
And we have come here to tell the Ukrainian people, we are with you. The United States is with you. We will not abandon you. We will fight and fight and fight to get this needed aid to you and to your brave soldiers.
Meanwhile, Zelensky said US is helping us to save democracy, not only in Ukraine, but in the world.
Your coming here is a very strong message from the United States, from your people of America, of support, big support, and I know that Americans on the side of truth, and we share common values, and thank you very much that you are helping us to save democracy, not only in Ukraine, of course, fight for democracy and freedom in the world.
The South Carolina primary election is a crucial test for former US Ambassador to the United States, Nikki Haley, as the last possible alternative to Donald Trump to be the Republicans' pick for president. The latest polls show the former president is well ahead to get the party nomination. after successful runs in both Iowa and New Hampshire. But that's not stopping Haley from trying. Caroline Malone reports from South Carolina.
From Charleston to Greenville, Myrtle Beach to Georgetown, Nikki Haley has been going all out to campaign, but may find her path to the presidency blocked by Donald Trump's supporters.
Now we've got 14, 15 million illegals just crossing the border, walking in. They're calling it migrant crime now. Sadly, I guess they don't have a choice, but Trump actually said that what is coming into this country is not the cream of the crop.
I love him. I think that I love his blunt reactions. I like the fact that he wasn't afraid to stand in front of the media and answer questions, and he will do what it takes to get the job done.
Polls are predicting a 30-point lead in the result of Saturday's vote in South Carolina for the former U.S. president.
Getting up on the stage. That seems to be rather difficult for some of our leaders these days. Yeah, it took you a little while.
His son Don Jr. agrees. He made fun of Haley and President Joe Biden at campaign events and said Trump will fix the economy and crack down on border security. Whether they agree or not, people are certainly engaged. More than 200,000 voters have already cast ballots. While early voting numbers show that more people came out to vote early in the Republican primary in South Carolina than they did ahead of the Democratic primary in early February. And with many more people choosing to take up that option, it's likely to have a big impact on Saturday's poll. Around 3 million people are eligible to vote and others can register on the day. It's an open election, meaning Democrats who didn't vote for Biden can vote for Haley.
So she's got to convince those people saying that, hey, I may be a Republican, but maybe you are a conservative Democrat. Maybe you don't like Joe Biden's presidency. Or she can argue with them that, hey, you may not love me, but remember Donald Trump? You really don't like him.
Haley says her priority is to stop war and that people can't let the chaos of Trump back into the White House.
I love her.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence, and I'm anybody but Trump.
Why anybody but Trump?
Because I cannot stand Trump. Ever since the insurrection, especially.
Haley may be behind in the polls, but is still campaigning hard to get every extra voter she can behind her on Saturday. Caroline Malone, Georgetown, South Carolina, for DD India.
And a group of Republican Party lawmakers in Congress are urging US President Joe Biden to follow India's example. They're asking him to deactivate his new TikTok account, citing safety concerns. President Biden's re-election campaign joined TikTok earlier this month in an effort to mobilize younger Americans, with polls showing him losing support among those voters. But will it make a difference at the ballot box in November? DD India's Benji Hire has this story.
For months, US President Joe Biden resisted pressure to get his own TikTok page. That is until February of this year.
Chiefs or Niners?
Two great quarterbacks.
When he announced his arrival with this clip that's been viewed almost 10 million times. Since then, Biden's account has posted dozens of videos on the app that's used by 170 million Americans, creating content, his campaign says, that will resonate with critical audiences as he vies to retain the Oval Office. Before joining TikTok, the president had leaned on unpaid, independent social media creators, spreading his vision to young adults on his behalf.
The Democratic Party is completely united behind President Biden and his...
Harry Sisson is a 21-year-old student with almost 800,000 followers, a huge reach. If you don't know him...
Harry, why don't you let me handle this one?
You got it.
You'll certainly recognize his co-stars.
We've got gun safety on the ballot.
People can look at me, they can look at other creators and maybe even sympathize more with us because, we're just average folks. But, the president is an authority figure. He has a lot of weight. His words matter. So I think having that on that platform and being able to spread that message as well would be very helpful.
Washington remains wary. The administration and many lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have expressed major data concerns about TikTok's Beijing-based owner, ByteDance. The app faces potential regulation stateside. It's banned on government devices here, and the majority of US citizens think that TikTok, because of the China connection, is a threat to national security. But Harry still feels that videos featuring the president might be enough to turn the tide in an election that could be decided on such fine margins.
Biden in Pennsylvania won by 80,000 votes. In Wisconsin, it was 20,000. Arizona, around 10,000. Georgia, 10,000. These are, the population of the United States is around 330 million. These are very small numbers in comparison to the population. So if we can convince 500 voters, 500 swing voters in each of these states, that could be the difference right there.
Yet those who fought the grassroots ground game remain skeptical of the app's potential power.
We've seen a couple high-profile examples of where, like, the internet's candidate did not win. I mean, if you would have been following a lot of online sites in the 2016 primary, you would have think that Bernie Sanders had it in the bag. And he performed very well, a lot better than expectations. But the reality is that a lot of the voters, especially in Democratic primaries, but just across the country, especially in the older demographics, they're not online.
How you doing, Mr. President?
The president's web presence, though, is still strong. Joe Biden's on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, even Threads.
The president came to my house to have dinner.
Despite opposition criticism and even warnings from his own White House over potential data and privacy misuse by foreign actors, he's now, as Gen Z like to say, cooking on TikTok. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And one of the biggest farming expos in the world is set to open in Paris on Saturday. The convention is traditionally inaugurated by the French president, and this year Emmanuel Macron is going to face angry farmers who have been protesting for weeks over a litany of grievances. And as DD India's Tony Waterman reports, some are already waiting for him at the venue.
This massive agricultural show gets underway here in Paris. French farmers are piling the pressure on the government. You can see this massive convoy of about 30 tractors that made its way through and around the city earlier, moving at a snail's pace and causing just a bunch of traffic jams before landing here at the convention center where the show is taking place. These farmers say that they are not satisfied with the concessions that the government has already made. Things like pausing a fuel tax and also cracking down on distributors who are violating laws that are meant to protect farmers' salaries. Now, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, was meant to have a debate with these farmers on Saturday, but has now canceled that at the last minute after the largest farmers' union in the country, the FNSEA, said that it would not participate. They called the debate provocative and said that emotions are just running too high right now for a peaceful dialogue to take place. Some of these farmers have actually been protesting now for weeks. They are protesting things like low salaries, spiking costs, cheap imports, red tape, and new environmental regulation. Earlier this week, the French Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, held a press conference. He said that farming should be of a national interest for the country and offered support packages for these farmers, which are going to be put into a bill in June. This convention that is taking place here over the next week is one of the largest agricultural shows in the entire world. It brings together people from all different aspects of the industry, representatives from more than 30 countries, but this year it seems that the main focus is going to be on protesters, not just here in France, but really right across Europe. Tony Waterman in Paris reporting for DD India.
Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Heavy rains flood southern regions of Peru. The authorities issue a red alert. India's telecom authority TRAI recommends names of callers to be displayed in incoming calls. And in Ranchi, Test India lose Rohit Sharma early. Yashasvi Jaiswal and Shubman Gill look to rebuild.
Is shooting the messenger the policy of Mamata Banerjee government? Is it going to work? Will it bring relief to the people?
The arrest of a journalist during a live show. Now, just imagine the police could have arrested him before or after the show. You want to send a message across the fraternity.
It will be very difficult for Mamata Banerjee to suppress all these voices. She is trying her best.
Please take pains to identify what the truth is. First, register the cases. You're not only not registering the cases, you're not even pursuing the cases. And that goes to show what your priorities are.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Now, South Africa's ruling party, the African National Congress, is set to launch its manifesto on Saturday in Durban's KwaZulu-Natal province. The president is expected to address the key issues facing the country as presidential campaigns pick up pace. President Ramaphosa is seeking a second term when the country will go to the polls on May 29th. DD India's Daniel Kijo has more.
These 2024 presidential elections in South Africa are projected to be the most competitive in the country's history. The launch of the ANC Manifesto comes at a time when the historical party might be facing its hardest time in its 30 years of existence. Severe power rationing and high levels of unemployment are just some of the myriad of challenges that might hurt the African National Congress Party election run. The political party's leading committee says they're expected to fill the Moses Madiba Stadium in KwaZulu-Natal with 85,000 people. They also have made arrangements for another 30,000 seats in case there's an overflow. The ANC's main opposition challenge is Julius Malema's Economic Freedom Fighters, or the EFF. Members of the diplomatic community like the Palestinian ambassador to South Africa are expected to be in attendance. The ANC has ruled the country since the late Nelson Mandela's presidency in the early 1990s. Daniel Kijo reporting for DD India in Dar es Salaam.
And there are fears of a deepening rift in West Africa after 3 countries announced their withdrawal from an important regional bloc aimed at improving relations, trade and movement in the region. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger Republic have announced their exit from the Economic Community of West African States, which is ECOWAS. The decision to break away was in response to sanctions imposed on them by the bloc following the military takeover of governments in all 3 countries.
It's the second time the leaders are meeting this month alone to discuss the issue and other concerns in the region. They last met on the 8th, where they pledged to redouble dialogue efforts with the 3 countries to remain in the bloc. ECOWAS says that withdrawal is at a time when the member states need to be united to tackle security concerns in the region and foster its growth. According to the organization, close to 2,000 insurgent attacks were recorded in the region in the first half of last year, resulting in nearly 5,000 deaths and severe humanitarian consequences. The region has been addressing the concerns with a multinational joint task force comprising 15 member countries. ECOWAS is asking the military rulers to conduct elections and restore constitutional democracy in the countries. But authorities in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger Republic say that won't be done immediately. They have also announced plans to form a confederation following their exit from ECOWAS. Lifting of sanctions against the 3 breakaway states is being discussed, but they are also being asked to rescind their decision to try and avert a deepening crisis. Tassim Akende in Jos, reporting for DD India.
An US Moonlander built and flown by Houston-based company tipped sideways on lunar surface. The Moonlander, dubbed Odysseus, is alive and well, but resting on its side a day after its white-knuckle touchdown as the first private spacecraft ever to reach the lunar surface and the first from the US since 1972. The uncrewed robot lander is carrying a suite of scientific instruments and technology demonstrations for NASA and several commercial customers designed to operate for 7 days on solar energy before the sun sets over the polar landing site. The vehicle is believed to have caught one of its 6 landing feet on the lunar surface near the end of its final descent and tipped over, coming to rest sideways, propped up on a rock. An analysis of data by flight engineers showed, according to Houston-based Intuitive Machines.
The vehicle is stable near or at our intended landing site. We do have communications with the lander.
Weather updates now. Guatemalan army helicopters dropped water over the Agala Volcano to battle a wildfire on the volcano slopes. Firefighters and the army have been working since Thursday to extinguish the blaze that started on 21st February on the slopes of the iconic volcano. Meanwhile, fire brigades climbed the volcano slopes to dig fire lines and contain the flames. The local authorities have said it will take about 5 days to extinguish the fire due to strong winds in the area. Heavy rains flooded Peruvian southern regions and damaged houses and roads. Authorities issued a red alert in Moquegua as the downpour could trigger torrents. In Yura and Inapari, over hundreds of thousands of houses got flooded by the intense rains after the Acre River got swollen. The National Met Service, Senamhe, forecasted rains to continue over the weekend. A scorching fire blaze continues to engulf Brazil's Roraima. Impacting the ecosystem of the region, Roraima has been put on red alert with severe fire warnings. Dry weather due to severe drought has contributed to the increase in forest fires in the state. High temperatures and strong winds have been blamed for fanning the wildfires, with people facing down massive flames as they tried to keep blazes away from homes. And India-US hold 11th bilateral consular dialogue. The Indian delegation led by Dr. K.J. Srinivas, Joint Secretary in Ministry of External Affairs, hosted the US delegation. The dialogue reinforced the strong people-to-people ties and cooperation that both countries share across consular issues of mutual interest. Both sides discussed ways of enhancing cooperation on a wide range of issues such as extradition, mobility of students and professionals, safe and legal migration, protection of vulnerable women and children, and enabling smooth travel of their respective nationals. They welcomed the launch of a pilot in the US to adjudicate domestic renewals of certain categories of visas as proactive steps towards strengthening robust connections between people of the two countries. Both sides agreed to hold the next consular dialogue in the US next year. And 2 days after the Seattle police officer who struck and killed Indian student Janvi Kandula with his vehicle was let off the hook, the Consulate General of India in Seattle extended their support towards ensuring justice for the victim and her family. In a post on X, Consulate informed that they have been in regular touch with their designated family representatives and will continue to extend all possible support in ensuring justice for Janvi and her family. Consulate also raised the matter strongly with the local authorities. They are waiting for the completion of Seattle Police's administrative investigation and will continue to monitor progress on the case. And with an agenda to strengthen the cooperative sector of the country, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated multiple key initiatives for the cooperative sector on Saturday. PM Modi inaugurated the pilot project of world's largest grain storage plant in cooperative sector at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. This is being done in 11 primary agricultural credit societies or PACS of 11 states. He also set the foundation stone for additional 500 PACs across the country for construction of godowns and other agri-infrastructure. This is to integrate PACS godowns with the food grain supply chain, fortifying food security and fostering economic development. The Prime Minister also inaugurated a project for computerization in 18,000 PACS across India. This aims at vitalizing the cooperative sector and empowering small-scale farmers. While addressing the launch event at Bharat Mandapam, PM Modi hailed the project as world's largest storage plant in cooperative sector. He says that the plan would empower the small and marginal farmers.
दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी भंडारण योजना के तहत अगले 5 वर्ष में 700 लाख मैट्रिक टन भंडारण की क्षमता तैयार की जाएगी। इस अभियान में 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा का खर्च आएगा। इस योजना के पूरा होने पर हमारे किसान अपने उत्पादों को अपनी जरूरत के मुताबिक भंडारण में रख करके स्टोर कर पाएंगे। उन्हें बैंकों से ऋण लेने में भी आसानी होगी और वो सही समय पर जब उनको ठीक लगे कि हाँ अब माल बेचने के लिए बाजार ठीक है, सही समय पर अपने उत्पाद को बाजार में ले जाकर बेच भी पाएंगे।
And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address the Viksit Bharat Viksit Chhattisgarh program via video conferencing. Prime Minister will inaugurate, dedicate to the nation and lay the foundation stone of multiple development projects worth over rupees 34,400 crore. Projects including thermal power plants to generate an estimated 243.53 million units of energy annually. Prime Minister will also dedicate rehabilitation and upgradation of 55.65 km long section of NH49 to 2 lanes. In a fresh move seeking to tackle pesky calls and control fraud through mobile phones, India's Telecom Regulatory Authority TRAI recommended that names of callers should be displayed in the incoming calls. Let's take a look at this report.
To address the issue of high volumes of robocalls, spam and fraudulent calls which can lead to unanswered genuine calls, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has recommended that mobile network operators implement a service on mobile phones, calling name presentation. The service will display the caller's identity based on the registration data submitted during the KYC process. TRAI's recommendation is to implement the calling name display service on mobile phones, mandate smartphone makers to enable this feature within a stipulated time, and enable the feature by making a query to the central subscriber database of provider from where the call originated. It will also allow subscriber entities holding bulk connections and business connections to present their preferred name in place of the name appearing in the customer application form. TRAI has pointed out that while some native smartphone tools and third-party apps already offer spam identification and calling party name identification facilities, these services rely on crowdsourced data which may not be entirely trustworthy. As per TRAI's recommendation, the government should issue appropriate instruction to ensure that all devices sold in India have the calling name presentation feature available after a specific cutoff date. Anita Raj, DD India.
All right, cricket now. England were all out for 353 in their first innings in the fourth test against India in Ranchi on Saturday. Earlier, Joe Root's magnificent knock helped England post 353 on day 2 of the fourth test, and in reply, India are 43 for 1. After the end of 13.5 overs, India lost Rohit Sharma early for just 2. Yashasvi Jaiswal is batting on 31 and Shubman Gill on 9. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.